Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm Dave Edwards, your host. Thank you for being a part of the program. We are having a conversation today that we want to invite you to join. So if you get a cup of coffee and pull up to next to the TV and step into our conversation. Today's topic is youth, and we're looking at students in the foster care system. And my guest today is Tanya Ratliff, who is the Executive Director of Pepper's Ranch. So Tanya, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad to have you as part of the conversation. So let's just get into this and talk about the foster care system, the need that's out there. I know it's a huge need in our whole state. How many children are currently in foster care?
So, currently in the state of Oklahoma, we have around 11,500 children in DHS custody. And unfortunately, you see that there's a greater need every year for more and more foster parents to step up for children in need of a home. And these children come from so many different broken places. And I think that's something that sometimes is confusing, because the face of foster care is changing. It's not, a teenage girl, a teenage boy with behavioral issues that, are put into the system for this, that, and another. It affects every age. It affects every race. It affects every, wealth status. And that is something that I think is really important to look at when you look at the foster care system as a whole. It's who it's really affecting.
Right. So, and I don't know much about it personally, but it's interesting to hear you say that really it affects every different type of race and every different type of really income level.
It is.
What have you seen that are why do kids end up in the foster system? What is it that gets them there?
You have a lot of different reasons that children enter foster care. A lot of it has to do with drug addiction, poverty, homelessness. What's interesting is that every child has a story, and none of those stories are the same, but every one of those stories is a nightmare. And I think it's important to look at the parents, because I don't believe that these parents stepped into the role or dreamed of their children going into foster care. I don't think these parents, my aspiration is to be, a drug addict and live out of my car and not be able to provide for my kids.
And abandon my kids.
Yeah, that's not the goal. That wasn't their plan. And I think so many times you have these young adults, for one, that are reproducing a statistic. And I think that's something that you have to look at. And then as a community, as a state, as an organization, as the church, it's time to get in front of that.
Oh, right.
It's time to break that cycle of child abuse and neglect. It's time to ensure that every Oklahoma child has a home. And it's important to help rehabilitate these parents and show them that regardless of what DHS says, we want you to be better than a D+ family, Because according to DHS statistics and standards, you have to be a D+ family to have your kids back. Well, what are we doing when we're reproducing a D+ family?
Wow.
We're reproducing D+ statistics.
Right.
Which in the end, you have a 59 and a 60. What's the difference there? I mean, really. So you're really close to failure. Right. And that's not what we want. I mean, regardless of what you were born into, you have the ability to achieve anything. And I think that is something that we need to make sure that we are introducing into the lives of foster children and parents who, again, it's through addiction, it's through lifestyle, and more than likely they're mirroring something that they saw previously.
And so how do we break that chain? How do you break that cycle?
And if I had a crystal ball, I think it would probably be a little easier to really, try to come up with that solution. I don't know what the answer is. I don't. I know that from being a foster parent myself and being one who's adopted, I think it's so important that we show these kids, I think, grassroots, it's nothing to be ashamed of. And that's what I make it clear to my kids. I want you to understand, your biological family's or mother or father's addiction is nothing to be ashamed of, but you can learn from that. So it's showing them that regardless of what you were born into, you have the ability to achieve anything. It's investing in them with services, with support, with love, with encouragement. And in the end, if they become a part of your forever family through adoption, that's great. But we know reunification is the goal. So I think we have to step in and we have to stand beside this biological parent, just like I think in a way, Christ stands beside us,
Right.
and gives us grace. And, regardless is that center of love. And I think as long as we keep investing in these parents, that hopefully they have a better sense of self-worth.
Right.
And hopefully they will see what we've invested in them. And hopefully there will be a return on that investment
Right.
by what they can turn around and give their children. And then hopefully we'll see this D+ family get up to a C-,
That's so good.
a C+,
Yeah.
a B-, a B+.
Yeah.
Because I really believe there is a possibility for these failing families to become a thriving part of society.
That's right.
And I mean, they have the
We
ability.
have to believe that, right?
We have to believe it.
This is really the church's role to cast vision and to meet those needs, right? So tell us how Pepper's Ranch intersects with all this and the need that we see in Oklahoma City and what's going on in the lives of students.
You will see Pepper's Ranch as a very unique model, and that's something that we are proud of. And that model stems from roughly 300 acres of amazing land with individual families that have been called to enter the community on a landlord-tenant relationship and to break the cycle of child abuse and neglect and be home to as many Oklahoma children as possible. So you have 13 families living at Pepper's Ranch, 110 children.
Wow.
And each of them have a story.
Right now, there's 110.
Right now, there's,
Wow.
we have 100 and now I will tell you that number does fluctuate depending on,
Right.
if children enter our community, when children leave our community, so.
Are they there for a certain amount of time and then they graduate out of that, or how does that work?
Some are there forever. I mean,
Okay.
some of these, right now over half of our population has actually found their forever family
Okay.
through adoption at
All right.
Pepper's Ranch, which is wonderful.
Amazing.
And then you got to think also, the history, and this is just not one child, okay? So normally these children come in sibling groups. And that's one thing that we cater to, and we want to keep a sibling group together.
Right.
Can you imagine being ripped out of the only thing that you know as normal, okay?
Right.
Regardless of how terrifying, how horrific, how unhealthy it is, that's still your life. And to be ripped from this, this place that you call home, and then being separated by maybe the only safety net you have, which is your sibling, and being taken to a stranger's home, being given 10 minutes to grab what you can, not knowing if you're ever going to see your biological parents again or your siblings. I mean, can you imagine the fear that resonates in these kids?
So their whole world's turned upside down.
And some of them question, well, I'm sorry, I would be behaviorally acting out also.
Right.
Because that's my family. And so one thing that we ensure is those sibling groups stay together. So right now we have 27 sibling groups at Pepper's Ranch.
Wow.
And so we want to make sure that those kids understand that that's important to us. It's important for your brother and your sister to be, if not in the same home, your next door neighbor or across the pond. And so that they can ride the school bus together, every morning, that they can celebrate their birthday, that they can go on an Easter egg hunt. I mean, those are important pieces.
Yeah,
and so
it matters.
We love it that, they're separated by a pond and not a zip code. Yeah.
Wow. What an amazing thing that you're doing. I guess if people want to find out about it, they can just log on to the website and get more information and see how they can be a part. And
Yeah.
I think that, if every church were to take on 2 kids in the foster system, that need would almost be eradicated. If every church got involved in some way.
And you just said it. I mean, this is, really the solution. I think you may have just hit the nail on the head. The solution is the church.
Right.
And I think that right there could be the new face of the foster care system if it was done the right way.
No, I believe that. I mean, I think originally that was the church's role, was to care for orphans and widows, and and somehow we turned it over to the state. I don't know even how that happened.
I know.
And I think that this is a call to the body of Christ to really rise up. And when you're telling the story, I was thinking about the story of Mephibosheth, where he was supposed to be the next king. The castle comes under attack, and he gets dropped on the way out and crippled and then discarded. And no one ever really hears from him, except for David went searching for him. And I think every person needs to know that if they've been adopted, or if they know what it's like to be without their real family, that God knows where they are and that the King's looking for them.
And what I love about it is we've all been adopted.
Right.
We've all been adopted by our Heavenly
That's
Father.
right.
And what a gift that is.
Right.
And my kids that I have, some obviously born from my body through birth, and others that are born through my heart through adoption.
Right.
And it's a gift.
Yeah.
It is such a gift. And I make it clear, I'm like, you were chosen.
Right.
Okay? God chose you, but then we chose you.
Yeah.
Okay? So, this is not something you didn't end up here by accident.
Right. Accidental birth.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and no one's an accident. Everyone has a destination in a life they're supposed to live.
I think everyone needs to hear that message. I think everybody needs to know, and the idea that the truth that we've been adopted. That it's not like us and them. We've all been adopted in some way. God's taken us in and given us His name and made us a part of His family.
Yes.
And it's just like Mephibosheth. They set him at the king's table. He's covered by the king's tablecloth, so all of his injuries and infirmities were covered by the king's presence.
Yes.
And so I think that what you're doing through Pepper's Ranch is a healing. That's a healing force.
We try.
So right. So there's ways that churches and individuals can be involved, and they can find out about it on your website.
Mm-hmm.
And what else would you say? Let's say we've got some people watching that maybe know what it's like. Maybe they didn't grow up with their real family, and they've always kind of lived with that wound, that there was never any closure. What do you say to someone like that? That
I think it's all about healing. You might not ever be able to go back in time and heal that wound back then, but can you reach out in the life of an Oklahoma foster child and find healing through healing of someone else? And can you step in? Can you volunteer? Can you invest?
Right.
Can you be that relationship maybe that you didn't have? You can turn around and you can be that relationship to someone who's in need of a mentor, who's in need of trust, who's in need of love. Yeah. That you can look at that person or that child and say, I believe in you. I believe in you.
Yeah.
And that you are going to be a world changer. You are the next generation. You're the next leader. You're the next president. You're the next doctor.
Right.
These are our future caretakers, and that is who we need to turn around and invest in. And hopefully that will give us a sense of healing. And
that is such a good word. I meet a lot of people. I've got a few friends of mine that were adopted, never knew their biological parents, and it was always been a wound. They never really got over it, even though God took care of them. So I think when you say we've got to look into people and see what's in them and call that out, call the good things out. So I'm so glad that you're here for this conversation. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back with more of Tanya and Pepper's Ranch. So just go get another cup of coffee, and then come back and join us for the next part of this conversation. I'm Dave Edwards. This is Joy in Our Town, and we want you to stick around, and you have great things to say. I appreciate your spirit and your energy that you bring to this, and so we'll be back in just a few moments, so stick around.